Hi guys, it's Miss Craven, and I don't know, sadly and happily, this is your final ever revision video. So we're looking at SAC 3 of Unit 4, and I've just decided to include some photos just to make you miss me and make sure you're still awake while you're listening to this. This is me with one of my chickens, Georgie. Wait, that's not Georgie, sorry, that's Jane Austen. It's very important that I get their names right. Okay, this is my dog when she graduated from puppy preschool. We did not think she would graduate because she's not very bright. And they didn't even print off a certificate for her because they didn't think she would pass either. But at the last minute, she sat down and that's all she had to do to pass. So I wish your exam was the same and all you had to do was sit down. But unfortunately, you had to get through a little bit more before then. Okay, so some hot tips from me. You'll see the word justify a lot in the key knowledge and the key skills. You have to justify things. Justify just means that when you say something, you have to back it up with some evidence or you have to give some examples or something like that. So just back up with evidence. You can't just say, oh, this is a great type of aid, multilateral. You have to kind of say why. Okay, so make sure you're backing stuff up with evidence if you see that justify. Remember, explain is in quite a lot of detail with some examples sometimes, and describe, all about. Okay, so that's the main ones you'll see. You'll also see stuff like identify the WHO leadership priority or the WHO work component or the Australian aid priority. Okay, so that's you just identify it as you just write it out. Okay, my other thing is if they ask you about, they can ask you to link stuff to health and well-being, which is PMAS, and they can ask you to link things to promoting human development, which is that big definition. And I've got some suggested answers for you. They're not going to ask you about health status or any other links like that, just these two things. So with promoting health and well-being, I really think P and M are the easiest ones for this area of study. Remember, you have to use your keyword. So if you want to talk about physical, you need to say something along the lines of free from illness, disease, and injury is the very best one for this SAC. Mental, anything about not being stressed and anxious about something. It could be like not being stressed and anxious about getting waterborne diseases from unclean water and sanitation, like cholera, okay? Or whatever. So those are your two best ones. With your human development definition, it's a really big definition. I think the very best one for this area of study is enhancing their skills and expanding their choices, because you can link it to school, and I love school. So if someone is healthy, they can attend school and enhance their skills and expand their choices by attending classes, and that improves their human development. That is probably the all-time easiest one to do for that. Okay, so by the way, these aqua boxes down the side are all your key knowledge and key skills. These are things that you can be asked about on the SAC. And they can ask you to describe and justify the rationale, which is the reasons why we have the SDGs, and the 3 objectives of the SDGs. So a little bit of just remembering some stuff for this objectives. So objective 1 is to end extreme poverty. Okay, extreme poverty, remember, was living on less than $1.90 a day. They want to fight inequality and injustice, and they want to address climate change. So those are 3 little things. They're not hard to remember, but make sure you do remember them. You have to be able to describe them. All of those things are pretty easy to describe, even without knowing anything about them, just from the title. And you need to be able to then go on and describe and justify the rationale. So we need the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, because the first one's kind of funny, because the MDGs finished in 2015, so we need new goals. We made some really great progress with the MDGs. We want to make sure we keep doing great things. So we've got now the SDGs. So yeah, that's a funny reason, but it's a good one. You don't want to just stop what we're doing. Okay, so that would be one of the justifying why that's important. Progress in all areas was uneven, especially for some countries that were really poor or low income. Okay, so heaps of stuff still needs to be done. okay? That's really important for, you know, this inequality's sake here. You want to make sure that everyone has improvements to their health and well-being. And the last one, new issues have emerged, unfortunately. We have an increase in conflict since 2001. We have extremism, which is another word for terrorism, and we have mass migration, so people moving. You know, look at the Syrian refugees and millions of people that have left Syria, and all in a small amount of time. So we have all these big emerging issues, and so we need to respond to those with new goals so we can improve. Okay, and the key features of the SDG3. SDG3 is our main SDG, and it's all about good health and well-being. They really just want a basic description of these things, and I've pulled out 3 key features of SDG3, and I don't think you need to know much past the detail in here. Even the title alone might be enough, okay? So one key feature is maternal and child health and well-being, okay? We want to have skilled birth attendants, and we want to prevent deaths in newborns and children under 5, and obviously in the mother as well. So we want to work on that. We want to work on communicable diseases like AIDS and malaria, stuff like that. They're still much more common in these low-income countries, and things like malaria are life-threatening, you know, so they're things that can be prevented as well. And non-communicable diseases, stuff like cardiovascular disease and cancer. And the big 4 non-communicable is, as I said before, cardiovascular disease, which is heart attack and stroke and things like that. Cancer, respiratory illnesses like chronic ones, including asthma, and diabetes. So because we're having like less physical activity and more energy dense food, we're just getting like rounder. Here's a picture of a person in case you forgot what it looks like. Hello. And so this obesity, as you know, is leading to type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And so we need some taxes on alcohol and tobacco and information on food labels. We need to make sure our roads and cars are safe for drivers, and we need also in here is mental health, and we need good mental health so that people can reach their full potential. It's a really important part of human development. So the 3 key features of SDG3, I think, are maternal and child health and well-being for sure, communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases. And I guess you need to be able to kind of describe them a little bit, not much, maybe like 1 or 2 little dot points for each. Okay, I've made a whole PowerPoint video just on this one thing. It's how you describe the relationships between SDG3 and the other 6 SDGs that we focus on. And they need to show how they're interrelated, and they all are. They also need to say what collaboration between sectors has to exist, and they need to say that it needs to be global stuff that they need to be working on, okay? All the good news is these things are all really easy to talk about as far as how they're related. It's just kind of how you then answer the question that can be a little bit annoying. I'm going to add a slide in after this to show you that, but you can have a look here at the relationships, I guess. So no poverty links to SDG3, good health and well-being, because if you have money, you have food, shelter, and access to healthcare. Obviously, if you have something like food, then you're able to develop a strong immune system, and you're going to be free from disease, illness, and injury because of that immune system. So for physical health, I'm using the keywords there. So free from disease, illness, and injury. And I've just linked it that way. Injury, I can't spell. Oh man, that's not the clearest writing I've ever done. And zero hunger is exactly the same thing. Okay, so if you have food, then you have a stronger immune system, like I said, and your physical health is going to improve because you have this better immune system. You're going to be, once again, free from disease, illness, and injury. Okay, I know injury doesn't really fall into that, but I'm using that key sentence from the physical health definition. Same thing over here, education, quality education, sorry. If you have education and you can get a job, you can then have access to money from your job, and then you have food, shelter, and access to healthcare. So then you go straight back into your food one again, okay? So it's really easy for linking it to physical health. Gender equality, if girls have an education like boys, or if girls have the same opportunity to have an education as boys, they can get a safe job with fair pay, and then they're less likely to physically injure themselves. So that once again, they're going to be free from disease, illness, and injury because they have this safe job. Okay, you could also link it to money, which then you would link back to food, shelter, and access to healthcare. Clean water and sanitation. If you have clean water, you're less likely to get waterborne diseases like cholera, which means again you're free from disease, illness, and injury. Okay, so you see these I guess my suggested answers for these are always roughly the same. They can't ask you more than one, so it's kind of fun. You can just recycle them. And climate action, I guess climate change causes these really severe storms, really dangerous, powerful storms. If we have climate action, we're going to have improved situations with climate change. So we're not going to have increasing temperatures, which means we're going to have less severe storms like hurricanes, and that's going to lead to less injury and illness and disease due to those storms and the damage caused by those storms. So that's how you would link it to PMS, which is this one here, so physical health. All of these things could also be linked to mental health really easily. Like if you're having climate action, there's less storms, then you're going to be less stressed and anxious about the damage caused in those storms, or having to move your house because of increasing sea levels and stuff. Okay, so linking it to P&M, as I said right at the start, is the best. Human development, I'm linking all of these things here to going to school. If you can go to school, as I said in the first or second slide, you can enhance your skills and expand your choices by going to classes, okay? And that improves your human development. All of these things link to that, okay? The most obvious one is quality education, but also gender equality, if girls can go to school. Clean water and sanitation, if you're healthy and you don't have diseases like waterborne diseases, you can go to school. Climate action, if there's no powerful storms and your school won't be destroyed and you can go to school. Zero hunger, I'm just reading this, sorry, it's a bit blurry. Zero hunger, if you have a good immune system and you have enough nutrition, you're not going to be malnourished, which means you can go to school. No poverty. Hang on, how do we link that to? Okay, so maybe that's one that doesn't link to go to school. Let me think. I know, if you have access to money, and then you have access to education, because education does often cost money in lots of different countries, including like money for books and pencils and pens and all those things. Okay guys, this key skill and key knowledge dot point is about linking SDG 3, good health and well-being, to the other 6 SDGs that we look at. It's saying that they are related, they have a relationship, and we know that's true, they all affect each other. On the previous slide, I just took you through what the relationship was, and that should only take a sentence, or I do sometimes a little formula so you can remember that, and they're all pretty straightforward. So a lot of them have a similar kind of formula or sentence, as you know. When you come to actually answering these questions, there's a few things you do. Firstly, be careful because they can be worth 6 points. It's the highest score that you can get in the SAC. So 6 points is really high. The first thing that you do, and I've got a checklist here for you that might help, is you write the names of both SDGs and you say that they're related. So this person, which I borrowed from OneNote, and they've done such a wonderful job and color-coded it too, which is great. Sorry, that was Mr. Calapan walking around behind me. So this person started by saying SDG 3, good health and well-being, so named it, and SDG 4, which is quality education, are both related. So they get a little tick for that one. Then they say explain the relationship. So quality education allows people to get a good job, which increases their salary, allowing them to buy food, shelter, and have access to healthcare. If someone then has access to healthcare, they can diagnose and treat illnesses, disease, and injuries, improving their physical health. So this is the keywords for physical health, remember, if you're free from those things. So you can tick that off too. It's written in the positive, so it's promoting, it's improving their health, and they've explained the relationship. They've used keywords for PMS. Now, they've chosen to do just one, so physical health from PMS. They could also talk about mental health. If you're not sure and it's a 6-point question, it's good to do two, okay? Now they are going to link it to human development. This is the pink bit here. So if someone is not ill, they can attend school and get a quality education. They're able to expand their choices, enhance their capabilities by attending classes, therefore improving their human development. Perfect. This is by the way, a textbook or exam perfect answer. So you don't have to have yours as good as this, but this is how it should be set up. Then you're going to mention what sectors need to collaborate in order for this to happen, this improvement to health and well-being and human development. And the sectors are all kind of obvious ones, and you just have to chuck the word global in there too, okay? So in order to improve health and well-being, have a quality education available, the health sector, so that's the one for SDG 3, it's always the same, and the education sector for this one, must work together to improve health and well-being globally. You might even say health and well-being and human development. Okay, and so yeah, if you're doing the zero hunger one, the sector would be the agriculture sector, or even the food sector if you forget the word agriculture. No poverty would be like the welfare sector. Gender equality would be something like the just trying to think the social sector, or the education sector, so that girls can go to school. Clean water and sanitation is your infrastructure sector, and climate action would be infrastructure again probably, but yeah, you can kind of make them up on the spot, which is really cool. This is as hard as this SAC gets. Okay, apart from remembering those 18 terms later on, this is the key skill for this SAC, for this whole area of study, and if you can do this, then you're totally set. So once again, if you want more information about how to answer these questions, I have a separate 7-minute video on YouTube you can check out. Okay, so the next thing is to explain the priorities of and the work components of the World Health Organization, and also you need to be able to identify them in case studies. Actually, that's kind of like the main thing they do, is they give you a case study and they're like, which one of these 18 things can you see in the case study? And they can ask you also to explain them too. So the sentence that you use to remember these ones here is Spider-Man can help you remember. So it's catch Peter Parker, discover Spider-Man. And shout out to my husband for coming up with that. The only one I came out with was vaguely dirty, so we can't use that. So the C, so up here, is conduct research and provide health and well-being information. That's really about promoting and preventing any kind of health issue. Universal healthcare is really important for this. Diagnosing and managing things. So yeah, that's the kind of keywords for this section. P is providing technical support to help build sustainable health systems. That includes universal healthcare again, health financing, having a trained workforce, reducing risks, that kind of stuff. And then P, provide leadership and create partnerships to promote health and wellbeing. And the WHO collaborates to do this, so they work with other people. There's international policies and regulations as well, and they do some outbreaks and disaster relief for this as well. So they might manage quarantine and things like that. Develop policies and to help countries take action to promote health and wellbeing. We know that if we have effective policies in place, we can improve health and wellbeing, and we need to adapt those for the local context. An example of that is the Tobacco Control Convention framework, where we're trying to reduce the amount of people that are smoking cigarettes, because, as you know, it leads to lots and lots of issues, including lung cancer. This one here is set norms and standards and promote and monitor their implementation. And this is all about kind of improving how we standardize data collection. So making sure that if we collect data in a certain way, one place, we collect it in the same way in another place. It's also trying to improve how we share, monitor, and evaluate programs. So this one here is really about using data, and the last one is really about having good data. So this one is monitor health and well-being and assess health and well-being trends. Okay, so this is working together, again collaborating to get data so we can see what our progress in health and well-being is, and then we can decrease diseases. So this is making sure that we have good data available to do that. Oh, here's my dog. Anyway, nothing. Okay, so these are the three main types of aid: emergency or humanitarian, multilateral, and bilateral. Okay, and I've got some little diagrams to help you remember this. You need to be able to describe the purpose and the characteristics of this aid, okay, and justify each. Remember, justify gives some evidence as to why it's good, or why it's good in a certain situation. Emergency humanitarian, your keywords are rapid assistance and it's short term. It's really in case of a disaster. These can be disasters like hurricanes, tsunamis, I'm not going to try to spell that, etc. So like natural ones, fires, floods, or it could be man-made conflicts, so it could be things like wars, okay? Either way, these guys come in really quickly to provide food, water, shelter, medical care. It's really quick, but it doesn't last for long. It addresses immediate needs and improves short-term health and well-being. So that's cool. And it's probably the most famous one. Okay, then we go to bilateral and multilateral. Bilateral just means from one government to another, which is what this little picture means. They aim to reduce poverty and create long-term sustainable development. So this is a longer-term program. An example is immunisation programs. The Australian government, for example, donated money to Indonesia so that the babies can be immunised against measles. Okay, and that's just an example, and I think it's a made-up example too, but I'm just showing you from one government to another. Multilateral, however, is many governments to one government through something like the UN or the World Health Organization or even the World Bank. It's kind of cool because you can pool big money for these really large issues like battling climate change and health issues around that, or the fight against HIV and AIDS. And so that one's really cool for pulling really big money for really big issues. So those are the three main types of aid, and that's each of their purposes and their characteristics. Okay, so features of Australia's aid program. Australia's aid program is they call aid ODA, which is Official Development Assistance, and that comes through the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade in Australia. And we've talked about it before that we don't actually give a lot of aid internationally, but don't mention that in your SAC or exam. It's just for your interest's sake. But when we do, we use these 6 different priority areas. Now, it says here as well, you need to know the type of partnerships involved. That is easy. Guess what? It's bilateral partnerships, multilateral, and what's the last one? Emergency or humanitarian. Okay, same thing. So they're actually the three partnerships are the three types of aid. Okay, so just keep that in your head. So these spell out A beige. Cool. A is for agriculture, fisheries and water. Easy to remember. Yay. B is a bit longer. Building resilience, humanitarian assistance, disaster risk reduction and social protection. And it's got some pictures there to help you remember. E is for effective governance, policies, institutions and functioning economies. And here's some policies and laws and yay, money. Okay, so the next one, is I, infrastructure, trade facilitation and international competitiveness. And here's my picture of trade. So these boats and ships taking stuff into and out of countries and selling it. Gender equality and empowering women and girls is here. And education and health is the final one. So they'll often ask you maybe to describe one, or like, to be honest, 99% of the time it's a case study and they say find whichever the priority is in the case study. So lots of these 18 things that you have to remember. So the work of the WHO leadership priorities and the Australian government priorities for aid. There are 18 things that you just have to memorize. So you need to use your giant flashcard and your little flashcards. Okay, now it says explain and evaluate the role of NGO organizations, non-government organizations in promoting health and well-being and human development. So you need to link it once again to health and well-being and human development. Human development, I always suggest that you talk about school, leading to enhancing skills and expanding choices through classes. And health and well-being, I'm recommending you link to physical, being free from disease and illness. Disease, illness and injury, forgot the other one. And mental, escaping some kind of stress or anxiety. Okay, so NGOs, it's not a type of aid anymore. It was last year, but this year it's been booted out, and we're looking at it separately. NGOs are so cool because they're not for profit, they're non-government, they're run just out of the kindness of people's hearts, which is cool. And they work really well because they're already on the ground in the country. They have a great relationship and understanding with communities, so they can target money and resources really quickly. Plus, in times of like a disaster, they're already there, so you can get them to coordinate things, really big things for hundreds of thousands of people really quickly, like providing food and water and shelter for 100,000 people in 2 days. We call it NGO. Okay, they're specialized in that. They've been around for like 50 years plus, since the war, some of them. The First World War. So they're experts, 100 years even they've been around, okay? So this on the ground knowledge and local knowledge is what makes them so special. And you're going to be asked to explain that role in PMS and HD, and sometimes through a case study, and evaluate it as well, okay? I'm saying that we should talk about their role in providing humanitarian and emergency aid in times of disaster. Okay, so I want you to focus on that in this answer. There's 3 NGOs that are good to remember: World Vision, Red Cross and Oxfam. You don't have to talk about them specifically at this point, but you just need to know that all 3 of those do humanitarian and emergency aid. Some good things to say: if you're evaluating it, you need to talk about positives and negatives. So that's their role, is giving quick, rapid, short-term aid in time of disaster that can sustain life or save lives, okay? Good things: they provide immediate relief with required resources to save people. Also, they've got centres everywhere, meaning that it's rapid response and it's targeted to those who need it the most. Some not so good things: if you're evaluating, emergency aid is not sustainable. It's only short term, remember. So they're only there for a short time. It's not going to be there for more than a few weeks at the most, okay? It also relies heavily on donations of volunteers, So if that's not there, then they're not able to provide that kind of assistance. Yeah, so NGOs, I think their role that you should talk about is around emergency humanitarian aid and in disasters. And those are a couple of things you can use to evaluate, which is one of the key words here as well, their role. Okay, and there's 4 features of effective aid programs. And you need to be able to evaluate aid programs using these 4 things. Do they have partnerships? That's the easiest one. So can you see that they're working with other people? Is there ownership in the community? So is the community consulted about decisions? Is it consulted about how money is being used? Do they have a say in things? Are they trained? Okay, any of that stuff shows ownership. Is it results focused? Why did I write this upside down? So is it focused on something that's really important and will make a big change? Okay, and if it is, like if it's something like water or gender equality or going to school, then it is results focused. It's focused on something that's going to really improve people's health and well-being and human development. Is there transparency and accountability? This one is harder to find in a case study. And if you can't find it, you can just say, look, there's no evidence of this, so it may not be an effective aid program. Okay? Because when you're evaluating, you're saying your opinion, do you think it's effective? And here's why. And then I want you to set it out. So I think this aid program is effective because it meets the 4 features of effective aid programs. For example, partnerships, and then you go ... You know me, I like the ... ownership ... and you tell me how it shows that. And I always put it in order from port. Results focused. And last one, transparency and accountability. Transparency and accountability means that firstly, nothing dodgy is happening kind of thing. Transparency means that they're really honest about how they're spending the money, who's involved, all that kind of stuff. And then accountability means someone's in charge of it. Someone's accountable. If it doesn't work, someone's going to get in trouble. And so how open are they about all the information about what's happening is a good measure of this. If you can't find it, you can say, there's no evidence in the case study of this, so it may not be an effective aid program. Okay, you need to, as you saw in the previous slide, you need to know one case study for this. You need to know one case study where an NGO aid program helps, and it has to be in relation to one SDG. I've chosen SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. This program that I'm talking about is between World Vision and the government of Ghana. So is there a partnership involved here? Yes, there is. Okay, sorry, I was just interrupted there to be in another video. I'm just in so many videos. Okay, so this program is run by World Vision and the government of Ghana. It's called Water for Communities in Ghana, and you do need to know the name and the SDG that it is working with, which is clean water and sanitation. Its purpose is basically to provide clean water through new wells, but you could phrase that in a different way, no problem. I just wrote that one myself, and I was just trying to keep it short. Some kind of features of this program is that the community was consulted with to kind of have their say about where the wells would be built, so they could be built in areas that needed them the most. And they also trained 2 people to repair any well issues, so it kind of really empowered those people as well. And they started a fund as well so that the community can chip in and pay for any repairs that need to happen, which is awesome. This is because this area in Ghana, only 38% of people had access to clean water and toilets. So that's really low, and it was leading to a lot of diseases and stuff, as you can imagine, and malnutrition because of diarrheal diseases for kids, okay, and toilets, okay. So they needed to introduce this program. So how does it improve physical and mental health? So it prevents waterborne diseases like cholera. So that improves their physical health because, as I said before, they're free from disease, illness, and injury. I'm sorry if I keep saying that. And obviously mental health because they're not stressed about getting sick from waterborne diseases like cholera, and losing family members from that, which is really sad. And what else have I written here? Yeah, who cares? Human development. If someone's well and they don't have waterborne diseases like cholera, they can attend school, and once again they can expand their choices and enhance their capabilities through enhance their skills through going to classes. Okay. And is it effective? Okay, it's effective in promoting health and well-being because partnerships, yes, it works with the World Vision and the government of Ghana and the community. Okay, and so it shows good partnerships. Ownership, yep, the community did have a say about where the location of the wells was going to be. Results focus, yep, it hit something really important. It was trying to create clean water and sanitation, which improves nutrition and health. And kids can go to school and they're not going to get waterborne diseases. So yeah, it was something really important. Was it transparent and accountable? I have no idea. It didn't say in the case study, but I could say, therefore, I'm not sure if it's an effective program, or I could say, look, I know World Vision is a reputable NGO, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be great. And how does it work towards improving health and well-being? Well, yeah, through all of these things around not getting waterborne diseases. Oh, here's another photo to say you're awake. I know I talk a lot about when I lived in Vietnam. It's probably boring for everyone. Here's me in Vietnam on my motorbike. Okay, the last kind of little thing is you need to describe and justify ways in which people can engage with communities or national and international organizations to take social action. So the first thing is, what is social action? It's doing something to help create positive change. And the ways that you can do that with, I just chose the 3 easiest ones. You can volunteer, you can donate money, and you can fundraise money. Okay, so each of you should be able to describe what those 3 things are. And in doing that, link it to health and well-being. So if you're fundraising money for a NGO who's helping out in disaster relief and emergency humanitarian aid, then obviously it's going to improve people's physical health because they're going to have access to maybe medical care so that they're free from disease, illness, and injury. I've also put a picture of Malala because, you know, I love her. She is a great person when it comes to social action. She's an advocate for girls going to school. Even when they shot her in the head, she kept going to school. She's now going to Oxford. Oh my gosh, she's so great. And her father is a wonderful man and feminist, and they're both big in social action as well. So yeah, all you need to do is be able to describe and justify ways in which you can. These are the 3 ways. Easy peasy. Okay guys, this is the end of the last ever revision video. I thought I'd put a creepy photo of myself in there just to, so you have my face to look at while I say goodbye, and wish you all the best of luck. And actually I'm not going to wish you luck because it's not luck, it's hard work, and you know that because you've done the most amazing work this year, and I couldn't be more proud of you if I tried. And you know I have very high expectations, so that's really saying something. Remember, all across the state, all the private school kids are going home to see their tutors tonight, and all that kind of stuff, and we have to get scrappy to get there, so we have to fight a little bit harder to get the marks, and I want to do better than them, and so should you. And yeah, just remember that, keep pushing. It's nearly over, but don't give up until it's all done. Okay, and yeah, have a great exam, and I hope it goes so well. If you need anything at all, just let me know. Thanks guys, bye.